President Biden is back on U.S. soil after a 7-day trip to Europe. So what is he returning to? A lot of problems, most of which are of his own making. Friends, it's time for Hold the Line.
On Sunday, June 20th, Joe Biden will have been president for exactly 5 months. And in these 5 months, we've seen crisis after crisis after crisis. We've experienced a gas crisis where we had gas lines and skyrocketing energy prices. We're on the verge of an inflation crisis, and we've got a border crisis that has been raging so intensely that we're on pace to see 2 million illegal immigrants come through our unsecured border this year.
Welcome to Hold the Line. I'm Buck Sexton. What has gotten better as a result of a decision Joe Biden has made for which there was any question or opposition from the other side? When has Joe Biden as president done something that Republicans said, don't do that, they opposed it, and it actually made everything better for everybody, or for anybody for that matter, in a meaningful way? You start to ask these questions and you come up with a whole lot of empty moments afterwards. You say, where is the early stage success here? We saw the numerous executive orders coming right out of the gate, very left-wing things that you wouldn't have expected from Joe Biden if you believed his whole moderate uniter spiel, which you shouldn't have because it was all a fraud. It was just meant to get this guy into office. We understand that he is the Trojan horse for much of the left-wing agenda and that they couldn't fool enough of the American people into voting for a Bernie or a Warren. So instead, the Democrat apparatus pushed forward good old Amtrak Joe. How scary could he really be? How confused could he really be? Well, now he comes back from his not-so-excellent adventure abroad, better than what Kamala did in Mexico and Guatemala recently, but that's saying almost nothing. And we look at what the domestic policy front looks like. Nothing about Biden and his aviators and staring down Putin. None of that is going to change anything in your life. What is going to affect you that this administration is involved in? What makes a difference to the people who are watching this show and who live in this country? Well, a big one, of course, is the employment picture. And while it is getting better overall because we are past the pandemic now, there's some troubling data. Worker filings for initial unemployment benefits rose by 37,000 to 412,000 last week, marking the first increase since late April and pausing what had been a steady downward trend in filings. The increase was the biggest jump since late March, according to the Labor Department. So a little bit of a spike in unemployment benefits here. Not something, I'm not saying it's catastrophic. I'm not exaggerating the effects of Biden on the economy overall, but we should be in the midst of a rocket ship-like recovery. We should be seeing explosive growth, explosive hiring, but Democrats want to pay people to stay home. The Biden administration wants to spend a whole lot more money. They want to focus on infrastructure. We still have small businesses that are trying to get back on their feet. A lot of them that closed their doors perhaps permanently that might be trying to get back into action now. There's a lot that has to happen here to get America really up and running to its pre-pandemic pace. But instead of having a focus on that, or even on Joe Biden's aviators, what is the press doing? Talking about anything else, whatever they can. And there are other problems on the home front that Joe Biden comes back to after his 7-day trip that he has no real answers for. In fact, he and his party, the Democrat Party, have just made things worse. Here are some of the crime headlines. Washington Post, officials worry the rise in violent crime portends a bloody summer. It's trauma on top of trauma. New York Times, with homicides rising, cities brace for a violent summer. Yahoo News, from Chicago to NYC, cities grapple with rise in shootings and murders. It's been a very bloody year. None of this is expected to improve. In fact, it's all expected to get worse, even though we're out of the pandemic. Remember, the media tried to stifle this story about the rise in violence that is directly attributable to the BLM movement, the anti-cop sentiments of the Democrat Party, the undermining of law enforcement's ability to do its job, the change in local policing and in enforcement of the law from prosecutors, you have all these progressive, these wacko left-wing prosecutors in places like San Francisco and Philadelphia and here in New York City who think that the way to deal with crime is just don't really prosecute it very much. Let people go. Don't make the bad guys and gals think that they're really going to suffer if they harm other people and break our laws. Give them another chance and another chance and another chance after that. Make sure you release them. No cash bail. We're not going to have any of that stuff going on. Make sure you don't go for punitive sentences, even for violent felons. Let's just see if we can have society handle these problems more, so there'll be innocent victims. That's the attitude. That's what we see now from the Democrat Party and left, and also we see that the number of police officers who have died recently in the line of their duty has also gone up dramatically. This is from NBC News. There's a spike in the killing of law enforcement officers. FBI Director Christopher Wray highlighted earlier this week before the House Oversight Committee that they had 37 officers murdered in the first 5 months of 2021, compared with 46 during all of 2020. So looks like we're going to be in for unfortunately, a record year of losses for those who wear the uniform. Now remember, for every cop who is shot and killed or killed in the line of duty, there are many, dozens, perhaps hundreds of others who are severely injured from very serious assaults, hit with bats and stabbed and punched and all kinds of things going on. Violence against officers in general is likely to be on the rise as well because of the change in sentiments around police and law enforcement that's going on. So what is Biden doing to fix any of this? Nothing. They got nothing, folks. He has no plans for the economy to get better faster. He has no plans to fix the southern border. What is it exactly that Joe Biden is bringing to the table other than runaway spending, inflation, and getting confused a lot in public? Well, at least there are some Republicans out there at the state level who are saying enough's enough, and they're stepping in. Here's Governor Abbott talking about how Texas is going to build its own border wall.
We know that temporary barriers and fences won't be enough to slow the flow of the record amount of illegal immigration that's taken place. That's why today we are announcing that Texas will build a border wall in our state to help secure our border.
Texas stepping up here and getting some help from another excellent governor. Really, I think right now the de facto leader of the Republican Party in America right now. You could certainly make that case. I know a lot of you would say it's still Donald Trump, but Governor Ron DeSantis, who is very close with Trump and very aligned on issues, is still in office and still getting things done. And here he is saying that he's going to help out his Texas brothers and sisters by sending Florida law enforcement to assist on the Texas border.
Today, we're here to announce that the state of Florida is answering the call. Florida is going to support Texas and Arizona. We believe that securing the southern border is important for our country, but specifically we believe it'll benefit the people of Florida to be able to get this under control. And so where the federal government has failed, the states are stepping up and doing our best to fill the void.
Democrats, a Democrat administration, making things worse, creating problems or exacerbating them. And on the other side, Republican governors here, Abbott and DeSantis and others, taking action to step into this leadership vacuum and get things done, solve problems. All right, New York, the state that has been, by the numbers, really hardest hit by the COVID-19 pandemic, has lifted most of its restrictions this week. After the break, talk show host here in NYC, Mark Simone, is going to talk to us about the latest developments in the governor situation, the mayoral race, COVID reopen, and more. Stay with us. We're living in very uncertain times, and being prepared for the unknown is more important than ever. I'm sure you've noticed the world we live in today is anything but predictable. The government is passing massive spending bills. The Federal Reserve is printing trillions of dollars in fiat currency, and many experts are predicting inflation could run rampant in the coming months. That could spell disaster for the dollars in your bank account. We can all benefit from something a little more reliable right about now. Well, what could be more reliable than real gold and silver? I'm talking about real gold and silver that you can hold right in your hands. Call the Oxford Gold Group right now and learn how easy it is to get real gold and silver sent securely directly to your home, or how you can have real gold and silver placed in your IRA or 401k. Just call the Oxford Gold Group at 833-600 Gold and ask for your free guide on owning gold and silver. Again, call the Oxford Gold Group right now, 833-600-GOLD. The Oxford Gold Group is the only gold company I trust. 833-600-GOLD. One more time, that's 833-600-GOLD.
Life is about seeing people. Life is about loving. Life is about celebrating. Life is about enjoying. Life is about interacting. And now we get back to living in life. The state mandates that have proven right and correct and brought us through this pandemic are relaxed as of today.
Yeah, proven correct. He's delusional. Anyway, fireworks lit up the night sky over New York earlier this week to celebrate the fact that 70% of adults in New York have received at least one dose of coronavirus vaccine. The milestone triggered most of the state's pandemic restrictions to be lifted, including social distancing, many masking rules, and capacity restrictions. So, is that it? Is New York really back? Is it open for business the way it should be? And what's going to happen for the politicians who are in charge here? Joining me now, radio talk show host on 710 WOR, Mr. New York himself, Mark Simone. Mark, good to see you.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm all right. I mean, I'm here in New York. You're here in New York. We're maybe a story that the rest of the country is looking at insofar as we're the biggest city, and now we're supposed to be open. First off, what do you make of Cuomo's the state mandates were right and now they're gone move? I thought that was quite a moment.
Well, I think he is brilliant at overacting. He went to the school of overdo it. You know, he thinks the louder you talk, the more true it must be. So if, he can't just say, well, we came through it already. We came through it all right. And he just keeps yelling louder and louder as if that makes it correct. He was an absolute disaster. He locked down a few weeks too late. You know about the nursing homes where he killed 15,000 people. His restaurants reopening was way too slow. He's wiped out so many businesses in New York. Had we not had him, and by the way, he used to be on the phone with Fauci 2-3 days a week. They were very close. So a lot of this wrong advice, I'm sure we can blame Dr. Fauci for. He's the last to reopen here in the tri-state area. Connecticut's been wide open for 3 months, so I'm just glad he finally did it.
It's amazing too that it seems, and I have to give you credit. You have said, we've had you on this show, and you and I have been talking with this now for the last at least 8 or 9 months, where it was clear that Cuomo wasn't the hero that they were pretending he was. But you always said, this guy knows the system. He knows how to stay in power. You got Gavin Newsom out in California facing a serious recall effort. It looks to me right now, I'd give someone 5-1 betting odds that Cuomo runs for re-election. And I'd give them, I'd actually give better than 50-50 odds that he wins re-election at this point. What do you think?
No, not at all. He's got bad stuff coming. I know he's holding fundraisers, but that has nothing to do with re-election. He's got to raise himself millions of dollars, because once he's out of office, you get to keep all that money, and for the rest of your life, that pays for your office, your car, your driver, your secretary. So that's why he's raising all this money. This Attorney General's report, even if it's not criminal, it'll come out in September. It'll be extremely damaging. And the U.S. Attorney they've expanded this investigation. It's been going for months. These U.S. attorneys don't go this far unless they think they got something, because they keep track of their final score. They don't want to lose cases. So the fact that they're still going and expanding means there's something coming from the U.S. Attorney's office.
So wait,
Again,
let me make sure that I'm clear on what you think at this point, Mark. So you're saying, does he make it through this term in office?
Well, the only good news for him is these, as you've seen with Durham and these other U.S. Attorney, Justice Department, takes them forever. So, but hopefully in the fall, something will happen. He absolutely, you could argue the nursing home's a mistake, but he absolutely covered it up, doctored numbers, withheld numbers. There's no way he escapes some kind of charge, even if it's minor.
You don't think he's going to, and you don't think he's a real shot at winning I mean, I would say that one's close to 50-50, but this guy should have had to resign months and months ago, and you said he's going to raise millions of dollars. They might get him in September. You really think he's going to lose? If he wins re-election, we're going to have you come on and sing a Cuomo tune.
I don't think he's going to. You know, when you see these public polls, these cheap little public polls, always at 54, 55%, the metrics are all screwed up in these polls. It's only 23% Republicans in the sample. Should be 36. So if they say he's at 55, he's at 42, and that's not enough for re-election. Also, you got really strong candidates up against him.
And let's talk about the mayor's race. At least we can definitely agree that de Blasio is awful. Although, I don't know if he's the worst mayor in the country. I mean, you see some Lori Lightfoot situations recently. You see what's going on with that guy. I can't remember his name out in Portland, but de Blasio certainly high on the list. This is, for the biggest city in the country, a mayor's race underway right now. Crime is pretty much the biggest issue. I mean, yeah, economics, that's always a big issue, the economy. But crime is really important right now. Adams leads the New York City Democratic mayoral primary, 28%. Yang, we all know him from when he ran, 19%. Catherine Garcia, 13%. Donovan, 9%. Maya Wiley, 7%. I mean, is it really just a Yang versus Adams race at this point? And what do you think of, I mean, is there anyone in this field that's going to make the city better?
Yeah, Curtis
on the Democrat
he's
side.
He's the Republican.
Right.
One thing about Adams, he is saying all the right things on crime. Everybody that's known this guy in the police department says, don't trust him for a second. So even though he's saying the right things, we don't know if he means it. They got this stupid rank choice voting where you pick 5 candidates, 5 choices, and under some of the mathematical models, if it goes to round 11 or 12, believe it or not, Garcia wins those rounds. So we have to hope it's decided earlier. Yang seems to be fading. We had a debate last night. We'll see if he turned it around. But and Adams should be out of it with his, it turns out he lives in New Jersey, all this other stuff he got caught on. But for some reason, people are sticking with him.
If you have to have a Democrat of it, I mean, are you a Curtis Sliwa guy on the Republican side? Is that fair to say? Is he your guy?
Absolutely. He's nobody better at crime fighting, and he's got Rudy backing him, and that's who you want advising him on how to fix the police and the crime in New York.
I mean, you're a resident here, so am I. The crime, the numbers are just mind-blowing. It's been really sad to see what's happened last year. Hopefully we can start to turn it around. Is Eric Adams the guy if you have to have a Democrat?
Well, the good news, and this is important to remember if you're all upset about this, de Blasio is the worst mayor in the history of New York. It couldn't be anybody worse. So no matter what happens, it can't get any worse. So we're at rock bottom now. I guess that's the good news. It can only go up. And Adams is a former cop, former police captain, although he kind of left in questionable circumstances there. But it can't be as bad as de Blasio.
All right, Mark, right now on air, I'm going to say this. If Cuomo makes it to the end of his term and wins re-election, I want a fancy plate of the pasta where they take the truffles, and they shave it. That'll be on you, all right? You got a deal?
All right.
And the same in reverse. If he loses re-election and if he runs and loses, I owe you one, all right?
Oh, by that time, you'll be the biggest national radio star in the world. We won't even be able to get a hold of you anymore. There'll be no talking
Yeah,
to you then.
I wish. I'll trust me, I'll appreciate that fancy pasta. Good to see you, Mark. Thanks for joining us.
Take care. Thanks.
Around the country, parents are mobilizing to prevent CRT from entering their children's curriculum. After the break, founder and president of American Principals Projects, Terry Schilling, joins us to explain how his group is helping the fight. Are you ready for the next national disaster? If we've learned one thing recently, it's that the unthinkable can happen at any minute. The best way to ensure you survive is to prepare now with an emergency stockpile of food from My Patriot Supply. They're America's preparedness leader, giving millions peace of mind for an uncertain future. But don't wait until it's too late. Act now before there's a stock market crash, more civil unrest, natural disaster, or worse. My Patriot Supply has served millions of families for over a decade, earning 39,000 4- and 5-star reviews. Their food is specially packaged to stay fresh and delicious for 25 years. And unlike other emergency foods, each meal provides 2,000 much-needed calories when you need them most. If you act now, you'll save 25% on their 4-week emergency food kit. Just go to preparewiththefirst.com right now to save 25% on a valuable 4-week kit. That's preparewiththefirst.com. As the debate over critical race theory heats up, there's growing and intense resistance from parents and teachers across the country. One conservative group launched a new effort to create a big family lobby to pressure politicians to vote for family interests and values. Check it out.
Being a dad is about having fun, but it's also about sacrificing. And as dads, we wouldn't have it any other way. But you know what? Politicians are making it harder to be awesome. They're teaching our kids that America is evil, and instead of protecting our kids online, they're protecting the porn companies. And now, they're trying to destroy our daughters' sports by allowing boys to compete against them. So what are we as parents to do to help stop this madness? We do what every other group does. We organize and we engage in politics. But where do families turn when politicians are causing them problems? They turn to American Principles Project.
Joining me now is the founder and president of American Principles Project, Terry Schilling. Terry, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Buck. Thanks for having me on.
All right, man, tell us about this. Tell us why you started this group, what brought you to this moment, and what you've described as the NRA for families.
It's very simple, Buck. So, it's obvious the threats and the assault, all the assaults against the American family across the country. Our schools are teaching our kids that America is evil, that their parents are racist. They're introducing all these weird, sexual gender ideology stuff on our kids and putting boys in our girls' sports, and no one's stopping them. There's a handful, but it hit me about a year and a half ago that everyone in D.C. has a special interest arm that's fighting for them, that's getting the bad guys unelected and getting their allies elected, except for the American family. You got big oil, big pharma, big tech, you got all these bigs, but there's no big family. And so we wanted to found the Big Family, a NRA-style membership organization to get families active and engaged in politics to where, if you're opposing school choice, or if you're fighting for critical race theory in schools, or any of this crazy stuff, we're going to come after you. Just as the NRA puts gun owners after you, we're going to come after you, and we're going to get you unelected for hurting our kids.
So, is this a pact for traditional family issues? Is that a fair way to describe it?
It's tough to put my finger on what traditional is anymore. But it's not your typical social issues, right? The real audience for this big family that we're building here is anyone, parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents, who is upset about what's happened to their kids' education, right? Even if your schools were open this past fall or this past spring and fall, your kids were your 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, they're all forced to wear masks. And your school board didn't care. They told you to shut up and sit down. This is geared towards those families that are upset about, they feel powerless. They're upset about what's happening to their kids in schools, and anyone really that's concerned about their kids' education as well. So we're going beyond those traditional social issues. We'll be focusing on some of those as well, but we're really trying to take back the education system and protect our kids.
Is CRT and the recognition of critical race theory indoctrination, as it's being shown to be the case in so many places across the country, would you say that's the primary reason that's motivated you to pull this together and try to organize to push back?
Well, I'd say it's a couple things. When the coronavirus hit America, parents across the country were just totally ignored and dismissed by their local school boards, and their schools remained shut down because that's what the teachers unions wanted. So I'd say that the primary motivator here is school choice and pushing back against the teachers unions. And, the school boards were designed to hold schools and teachers accountable by parents in the local community. And the teachers unions have really flipped it on its head. But critical race theory and opposing that will be a huge thrust of this effort, as well as fighting the left on these crazy gender ideology things that they're teaching our kids. I mean, we've got 3-year-old toddlers, who are transgender now. It's absolutely crazy. We didn't have that up until a few years ago. So we're fighting on all these fronts because they're a direct assault on the ability of parents to raise their kids according to the values that they want to instill in them, not the state and not these wacko progressives.
And how has this been received so far? What are some of your plans to grow the project here, the American Principles Project, and try to get this to become something that I don't know if we'd say the teachers unions fear, but that they certainly have to be aware of. We're not trying to scare anybody here, right? We just want a voice. Go ahead.
We just want them to compete with us. We want to have hold them accountable. So, look, we're going everywhere and anywhere to get this video, get our plan in place, and get as many people to sign up as possible. We want to approach the NRA's style or the NRA's level of membership. And that's huge. So we got our work cut out for us, but I'm going to be going across the country, speaking at every type of event I can possibly do. We're going to be having our members who have already signed up. We're really hitting a stride here. We've got hundreds of people that have just signed up in the first few hours, and we're very excited. So we're going to do meet and greets with our members. We have a family meeting, our first family meeting that's coming up this upcoming Monday with Senator Tom Cotton. We're going to talk about critical race theory and how to fight back against that. But I got to get this message out there. The NRA took a long time to build. I think that the assaults and the threats against our families is so dire right now, and they're so in your face, that I think we might be able to build this thing a little bit quicker than they were able to. Plus, we got the internet, great way to communicate. And, it's been received so well, Buck. We've got over 100,000 views of our ad across all the platforms. So it's being received very well, and we're very excited about the momentum generated.
You mentioned specifically digging in on the school choice issue, which I always feel like is just it's a winning issue for conservatives and for people that just believe in individual and family freedom. Doesn't get as much attention in Republican politics as I think it should. Can you tell us what is the state of that issue right now? It feels like it's not getting much attention, and given what we've seen with the teachers' unions throwing their weight around during lockdowns, one would think at least it's possible to shine the light on this a bit more and get people to understand that we need more accountability for the education system to the parents and to the students across the board.
Buck, you're exactly right. But what accountability is in politics is it's getting people elected and unelected based on certain issues. And what we've seen with the school choice issue is we've had great people leading on this. They've made great arguments. They've done great research, but no one has put this issue into politics, campaigns, and elections. No one has lost an elected position over their opposition to school choice. However, the school board, or the teachers' unions have been involved in these types of races, and they will make sure that if you support school choice, that you lose your race. So part of the thrust of this entire effort with the big family is to start getting people elected and unelected when they oppose school choice, or get them elected when they support school choice. Politicians, as we all know, only care about one thing, and that is getting reelected and elected. So we're gonna play into that dynamic that our founding fathers so preciously built and put the people in control over, and we're going to take advantage of that and use that to advance issues. But school choice would have gone a lot farther if people started losing their elections for not voting and supporting it.
Terry, how many kids do you have?
I've only got 5 kids right now. I'm hoping to add a few more here in the coming years.
He is a busy man, folks.
God gives us
5, count them, Terry. Good to see you. Good luck with this. We'll talk to you again about it soon.
Thanks, Buck. We'll see you soon.
All right, the latest victims of critical race theory, 8th graders at an elite New York City private school, what they were shown at the graduation. I'm telling you, it was so outrageous that one mother yanked her daughter out the next day. Stay tuned to find out about this. One of New York City's most elite private schools is the latest to jump on the woke train. The $50,000 a year Upper East Side school, Spence, sparked outrage after showing its 8th graders a video humiliating white women. Yeah, that's right. You heard that right. Here's a clip of the video that was shown at the graduation.
What percentage of white women do you hate? And there is a right answer.
Yeah, there's no right answer. I actually never thought about this. I would say that I am less concerned with race than you are.
Karen has become a pejorative term for some reason. Do you think Karen's lives matter?
I think that Karen's lives matter because if Karen's lives don't matter, no lives matter.
What is that all about? Joining me now to try to make sense of this is a senior contributor at thefederalist.com, Inez Felcher. Inez, good to see you.
It's great to be here, Buck.
So, a letter to the school from an ex-trustee and mom who took her child out of the Spence school said the following. They sat there in their graduation dresses while the white mothers of the white students, many of whom volunteer, donate, call, email, and do whatever the school asks of them, were tarred and feathered in a video their teacher showed them. while their white female teachers were mocked. Now, they weren't actually tarred and feathered, of course, but anyway, we get the idea. Surprising, to be expected, too far for even the left. What do you think about this, Inez?
All of the above. It's not particularly surprising, but it is obviously going way too far. I think we have to think about this issue of extremely expensive elite private schools going very woke as attached to the universities. We can't think of it as detached from the academy, because that's the reason this is not coming from parents. It's not coming from the ground up. It's coming from the top down. And the root of why a lot of these schools are going woke is because they're, quite frankly, preparing students for Harvard University. And guess what? Harvard University is super, super woke and believes in all of these crazy ideas, which is why I think the right has to get really serious about building alternative institutions, both to the academy and to these kinds of prep schools.
And the Spence School put out that this was a satirical video, not part of our curriculum. We trust our dedicated teachers to stand by their professionalism and commitment to our students. I mean, pretty boilerplate. Okay, well, this wasn't part of the curriculum, but I feel like this stuff all wears pretty thin these days, Inez, because we keep seeing, especially these kinds of very pricey private schools in places like New York, Los Angeles, other major cities, going super woke, and people can be, I think, forgiven for being a little cynical about this. Oh, you mean and they're actually making salaries at places like the Spence School, the head of school. They won't say the term headmaster anymore. They've changed that. It used to be that when I was growing up. Now they'll say head of school. They're making $1 million a year, right? So there's a sense of you've got an educator making decisions at a place like Spence, in this case the president or the head of the school, making a seven-figure salary and trying to do everything possible to have the student body reflect the kind of values of the woke left so that they won't be attacked and that they can just keep on charging everybody $60,000, give or take, a year. It seems kind of phony. I think that's part of why this sticks out in everyone's mind in the woke wars.
Sure. 2 points on that. One, this obviously doesn't represent the average private school. Average private tuition in the United States is about $11,000 a year, which is actually substantially less than the between $14,000 and $15,000 a year we spend per student in the public schools. So these kinds of schools are an outlier among private schools. Most private schools are actually parochial or attached to some kind of institution of religious faith. But the second point about the elitism, right? What we're seeing is a very unusual cultural revolution, right? Because the one thing that most revolutions have in common is that they throw out the people in power, the people at the top, and they replace them, sometimes with disastrous consequences, right? I'm not saying that that's necessarily a good thing. But here in the United States, we have a cultural revolution that is designed to keep the people who are already in power, the cultural elites, and what Michael Lind calls the managerial class. It's designed to keep them in power and maintaining all of their power. It's designed to increase the power of gatekeepers and elite institutions like these $50,000 or $60,000 a year private schools that then feed, as I said, into Harvard University, Yale University, the top universities that then go on to produce a class of people who believe themselves to be rightfully at the top of this American sort of bureaucracy and managerial class that go on to be the Dr. Fauci's of the world that, in fact, make too many of our political decisions in this country.
Another story that was getting some attention today is that Victoria's Secret is saying goodbye to the angels in an attempt to, what they claim is to redefine sexy. The chief executive is saying, when the world was changing, we were too slow to respond. We needed to stop being about what men want and to be about what women want. And, okay. We've got Megan Rapinoe, I think is how you say it, Priyanka Chopra Jonas, and a transgender model, for example, all joining the company's new campaigns. They can do whatever they want. I don't think they're going to redefine sexy anytime soon. They can try, but men tend to like what they like.
Well, the hilarious part of this is, of course, if they were doing what women wanted, they would design bras that actually fulfilled the purpose and weren't cheap pieces of plastic that fell apart after 2 weeks that were overpriced. That's their fundamental problem as a company. But, you know, women, if women weren't buying Victoria's Secret bras while they were modeled by Adriana Lima, I don't think they're going to buy Victoria's Secret bras modeled by Megan Rapinoe. This is obviously a last-ditch attempt for the company that is rightfully, I think, in terms of its product, just not serving the market, and is probably on its way down or on its way out of business. It's a last-ditch attempt to try to like capture this essence of our zeitgeist or whatever. It's a very unpleasant one, right? These kinds of statements from corporations are boring.
Sorry. I just want to ask you why does the left try to redo? I mean, they try to do this body positivity movement, and then they'll put forward people who are on a medical basis actually deeply unhealthy and say this is aspirational, the physiques that they'll show. I'm not talking about people that are just sort of average. They'll put forward people who are clinically obese, and they'll say this is beautiful. And now they're saying they want to redefine sexy. Why is this this always comes from the left and from the progressives? Why?
Well, I think they despise anything that seems to them unfair. And of course, there are so many unfair things in life. You know, it's unfair that I wasn't born looking like Adriana Lima. But the left is raging against all of those kinds of realities. But what's really screwed up, I think, in the way that we think about our bodies is that we think of something like sex, right, which is unchangeable, which is defined by chromosomes and gametes, and is a biological reality for women and men. We think of that as malleable and changeable to what's in our head, but being overweight is not, right? If you're overweight, you should embrace that as your identity because you shouldn't have to change your body to fit in with the world. And then on the flip side, we're actually surgically mutilating our bodies in order to change something that is fundamental, is a fundamental reality and can't be changed through any amount of, for example, of work on our part, which is something like sex. So I think the way that we think of our identities and our bodies is fundamentally misaligned and screwed up. And you can see from those two examples how we've kind of crossed the wires on everything.
Yeah, the party of science, not so much. Inez, always good to have your perspective. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
A Zoom call goes awry for a New Jersey congressman. It's not as bad as Jeffrey Toobin, but it's not a good look. We'll have the video for you in quick hits. Stay with us. I've been telling you for a while now about online thieves who can easily steal your home's title, but you don't have to take my word for it. Take it from this thief who stole over 150 homes and was sentenced to 25 years in prison. This is why you need Home Title Lock.
Nobody thinks that I can take their house and borrow against the house. No, I have title insurance for that. No, it's in my name, or he would have to get some special document. They would call me. You know, nobody's calling you. After I've stolen the title, borrowed against it, or sold the property, or done whatever I've done with it, it's 60 to 90 days to even figure out that they're the victim of this crime. You know, by that point, you start getting foreclosure notices, and you realize you've got 4 mortgages on your house. Not only that, you don't even own your home anymore. It's not even in your name.
Heard enough? Don't let this crime happen to you. Go to HometitleLock.com and register your address to see if you're already a victim and enter radio for 30 free days of protection. That's code radio at HometitleLock.com. A New Jersey congressman exposes one of the many dangers of Zoom meetings, and Karens around the country can't wait for this new fashion accessory. Those stories in tonight's Quick Hits. Let's get right to it. Let's start out here with Representative Donald Payne Jr. of New Jersey. Look, we all did a lot of Zoom probably if you did any remote working. Not everybody did this. A lot of people did remote working over the course of the pandemic. And you always got to make sure, that your call has ended. Jeffrey Toobin found this out the hard way. You've got to make sure that you don't leave the speaker on or something and you go to use the restroom. It can happen, though. I'm pretty forgiving about most of these things, Toobin aside. And even that wasn't the end of the world. Everyone needs to calm down a little bit. It was gross, but God wasn't killing people. You have these moments where you think, okay, I guess this could happen to anybody. Representative Payne of New Jersey was at a Zoom hearing, and he was apparently in his PJs and probably forgot that. Here you go.
Authorizing capabilities CISA has built through a pilot called Cyber Sentry, which allows CISA to partner with certain strategically placed critical infrastructure to monitor and detect threats in real time. Specific threats to industrial control systems and operational technology. Would you agree that for CISA to be effective, it needs...
Guys, that wasn't even that. That was like nothing. A control room, that one wasn't really, So his tummy's hanging out for a second there. Who hasn't had a few? I've had a few extra cookies over the course of the pandemic. It happens to the best of us. And so he's wearing boxers. I'm going to tell you this right now. If you've done a lot of Zoom work from home, you've been on calls with people that were wearing their pajamas for sure. A lot of them do the business up top. It's like the mullet approach, business in the front, party in the back. It's business up top, party down below. That's how it usually goes. All right, now I've been telling you for a while that we are going to have to eradicate all the vestiges of Fauciism that are out there. We're going to have to tell people that they can't continue to cling to these notions of viral suppression and mitigation and make sure the droplets aren't coming out of your mouth and all this crazy nonsense that Fauci was spewing all the time. And we had all this Big Brother-like reminders everywhere about where to stand. And so much of it was so dumb, obviously dumb. No one could defend these things, many of them at least, as not stupid because they were so obviously stupid. There's a store in Wisconsin that's getting national attention because it is providing customers with color-coded bracelets to indicate their comfort with social interactions. Elbows only, still being cautious, or handshakes, still practicing frequent hand washing. Is there I want a coded bracelet for, I'm not a lunatic, so I'm just living my life normally. You can hug me, you can high-five me, you can extend a one-finger salute in my direction if you don't like conservative media stuff, whatever. But I want the bracelet that I can put on that's going to tell people I'm living my best and most normal life. So we don't need to have any more of this, no more of the elbow touching, no more of this nonsense. So whatever that bracelet color is, perhaps it's red, white, and blue, something like that. That would be good because right now this is just, it's absurd beyond words. And speaking of all these things, here's a woman who had an interesting theory about something that you're going to hear. Play it.
Hey, it's that time of year again where white people can't wait to get really tan. And Latinos también, bronceaditos, quemaditos. If you're a white person, you can't wait to get super tan and you can't say Black Lives Matter and you're not an ally and you can't stand for your Black, brown, indigenous, people of color, friends, and family, then do everyone a favor and tanning is not for you. So, thank you.
No, that's not how it works. It's just not the way it goes. But I don't know if people are getting dumber or if we're just, because of things like TikTok, more frequently seeing people who are really not very smart. Question for the ages. That's it for tonight's Hold the Line. The No Spin News with Bill O'Reilly is up next. Shields high.